If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. The latte itself, skipping the latte is not going to make you wealthy. It's the habit of delaying gratification and taking what you would have spent on the latte and investing it instead. That's what's going to make you wealthy. Good afternoon, everyone. Micah Smith here, and I am back with another episode of Rebuild and Rise. And yesterday, I had the privilege of recording with Fox Business. This is going to go live in a couple of weeks. So I thought I would come here and I would re-record all of the questions that they had for me, because if they have them, then I imagine you have them too. So we're going to dive right in. And so the first question was, they had asked me about being a bikini competitor, and they said, how do you view the relationship between a person's credit score and their overall physical and mental well-being? So the interesting thing about credit and fitness is that it's actually all linear. It's all connected. And there is a saying, and I truly believe it, it says that how you do anything is how you do everything. And it's Tony Robbins. He said this, and I'm sure someone said it before him, but he says that your body and your bank account are a reflection of your standards. Think about that for a second. Your body and your bank account are a reflection of your standards. Now, it's really interesting how when we're dealing with finances and we're dealing with credit and we're dealing with life, that we all have a lot that is in our control. Of course, there's things that are outside of our control. Like if you get sick or you have like a major life event happen, of course, right, that's now you're gonna have to react to whatever it is that had happened. But the big thing that we always tell our clients is plan on the plan, not going according to plan. And so you have to prepare. You have to prepare for now. You have to prepare for the future. You have to implement things like delayed gratification. And the one thing you're going to find, people who are successful financially, physically, mentally, relationally, they have the ability to perform extreme examples of discipline and the ability to just defy themselves what they might want in the here and now in order to understand, like, I'm going to put off right now for a better tomorrow and for a better future. And it's proven time and time and time again that these habits are what make people very successful. And what I loved about the bodybuilding world was the bodybuilding world actually taught me that I could live in a deficit. And that's what I love about the bodybuilding world, is that you're tracking everything. You're tracking every single piece of food that goes into your mouth. You're tracking all of your cardio, calories burned, you're lifting, you're tracking absolutely everything. So that way you can create this insane result. Well, why do we think of finances any differently? You have to track everything and it has to be automated. I listened to a phenomenal podcast yesterday with Ed Milet and I think it's Dan Mock. Regardless, this podcast was incredible. And they talk about the importance of automation. And I talk about that in the fitness world as well. So the important thing is to understand that the bodybuilding world and the financial world are very, very similar in the fact that it's a science and there's a system and it's automated. So the less you have to think about it, the easier it's going to be. So like, for instance, in the credit world, we say automate your payments, make it so you don't even have to think about it, because God forbid you forget, then it causes a major catastrophe. In the fitness world, if you forget to work out, whatever, no big deal. But let's just say you don't meal prep. Well, now you're subject to finding whatever you're finding on the road, and it's probably not going to be the healthiest option. And so in turn, it's going to keep you away from hitting your goals. And in the bodybuilding world, when you're trying to get this insanely perfect physique, literally everything counts. You can see it. They say that you will see on your body what you eat in private. I'm going to tell you this about your credit. You will see on your credit score what you spend in private. It's the same thing. So the interesting thing is the mental well-being. So when everything's in alignment, when the habits are there, the good habits are there, it's really interesting how the mental and physical well-being tend to come with it. It's very interesting how it all intertwines. And if you look at all the data and all the research, you actually can see that people who have higher credit scores, they tend to be less risky in their behavior. Yeah, people with low credit scores, they tend to be more risky in their behaviors. And it's the same thing, and it does carry over. And I can attest from personal experience. I remember when my credit score was not the best, my behavior actually was extremely risky. And as I got to a point in my life where I became more and more stable, well, my interest in maintaining and having a really healthy credit score also weirdly was at the pinnacle. And so it's really interesting how all of a sudden, like as time progressed, my habits changed, my credit scores changed, my finances changed, and everything came together. And interestingly enough, too, right about the time when my credit was getting really, really great, interestingly enough, I also got sober. It's not really a coincidence. It's actually just a fact. So many people are like, oh, the credit system is rigged. I'm like, no, it's actually not. We just have to learn how it works. And then once we learn how it works, then we use it to our advantage. And it's amazing what it tells you about a person. And if you're looking for a spouse, I would recommend to you find someone with a similar credit score as you, because you tend to view money and treat money in the same way. And inherently, you'll have more or less risky habits. So what's really interesting, so they had asked me about researchers finding that neighborhoods with financial health, including average credit scores, it's strongly associated with community health outcomes. So Operation Hope had done a study. So John Hope, he did a study. He partnered with Experian, and what they found is that people who live in neighborhoods or communities where the credit scores are 580 or less, they will live 15 to 20 years less than someone who lives in a neighborhood with a 700 credit score or higher. And their question was, what everyday environmental and access factors explain why the higher credit neighborhoods tend to support better health and lower stress? Think about it. Now, I personally have been in the situation where I've been privy to living in the neighborhood with the lower credit score and the higher stress. And I may not have been in the worst of situations, but I certainly wasn't in the best of situations. So what I want to talk to you about is why higher credit neighborhoods tend to support better health resources and lower stress. And the reason why is when you're in a higher credit neighborhood, you're generally focused on different things. You're having different conversations, you're going to different schools, you have different educational opportunities, you're walking around the neighborhood feeling great, feeling safe, versus in lower credit score neighborhoods, you're probably more than likely trying to survive. If you're living in survival, you're just trying to survive. They're not thinking about their safety. They're thinking about growth. They're thinking about building. They're thinking about literally anything else, versus people over here are just trying to survive. And the stress factor alone of just, how am I ever going to get out of the situation? I don't know about you, but I can tell you the emotions that people have. And I just recorded a podcast today with one of our team members at Micah Abigail, and she went from 500s to high sevens within a matter of a few months. And it was just a couple of small tweaks, but she was so petrified of going to a credit restoration firm because she's like, well, who do I trust? How do I trust them? And she's not wrong for thinking that. And so then she comes to us and she fixes everything in her life, literally completely transforms within just a few months. Think about that. Lives can transform within just a few months, 500s to 700s. Perfect credit, nothing negative on it whatsoever anymore, completely taken care of. But it's because she took the principles we taught her and applied them. But think about the difference of opportunity that she has, right? So she couldn't afford to get a new car prior to having started working with us. So now she has a safe car that she can drive, lower insurance rates. She has the ability to buy a home. She has the ability to change places if she wants to move, if she wants to rent somewhere else. She can go and apply anywhere she wants and have absolutely no restrictions put on her whatsoever. Versus, think about the difference of what is accepted in a neighborhood of 580 versus what's accepted, in a neighborhood of 700 or higher. Think about the difference between the two. It's substantial. And so from the stress alone of feeling so limited and so overwhelmed, and she needed a car so badly and she couldn't get one. And she needed to build credit and she didn't know how. She's like, I keep getting denied. I don't know how. I don't know what to do. Think about the stress level and the burden that someone carries, the constant anxiety. We've heard everything from anxiety to anger to panic every time that we talk to our customers when they're in this situation. And myself personally, I also have been privy to that. I know what that's like. I remember being in a situation where I was not the most responsible. I had anger, unnecessary anger, and it was pointed at people who just wanted me to pay them on time. And that's the crazy thing about how this industry works. And I just didn't know where to put the funds. It was the craziest thing. And so people get so overwhelmed by this topic of credit. And that's why it's so important to have companies like ours, because we take the stress load off. We tell you exactly what you have to pay. We tell you exactly what not to pay and why. And we help you do it in the right order. Because if you start paying things off in the wrong order, you're actually going to see your scores go backwards. They said longitudinal health studies suggest that underlying behavioral traits like impulse control, future planning, and perseverance predict both a person's credit score and their long-term health risks, like cardiovascular disease. How do you see these shared psychological habits play out in your clients when they are struggling with both their finances and their health? So we see that when people are struggling with their finances and their health, we're actually seeing that they lack these actual behavior traits. And I want you to understand the importance of embedding these 3 personality traits into your life. Okay, so impulse control, future planning, and perseverance. I'm going to tell you my superpower, and my mom will tell you this, and anyone who's very, very close to me. I am resilient and as perseverant as they come. And what's really interesting is I'm finding, and it's not just people with financial distress, this is everywhere. People give up so easily. They hit a roadblock and they're like, okay, all right, I tried, whatever, I'm done. And it's like, what? Are you crazy? Do you realize I took 3.5 years to fix my own personal credit? I had hired a really crappy company that was really bad at what they did, yet I would still go, I would not reverse a thing that I did. Even though they were a terrible company and it took them 3.5 years to erase 2 things, I wouldn't go back and change it. Why? Because my credit's perfect. My company didn't exist 15 years ago, so I wouldn't go back and I wouldn't change it for the world because it changed my life. Changing my credit score changed my life, and having more options on the table, getting the best rates for everything I own, being able to now invest, wealth building. Are you crazy? But the coolest thing is impulse control. Impulse control, I don't think we talk about that enough. And the impulse control is so important because we are in a society where things move so fast. And this is actually one of my superpowers. And my husband is so good for me because he tends to slow me down. And he's like, let's just think about this. Let's pray on it. And so I do have some pretty hard, fast rules that I put on myself. So any major expenses, like any major things I want to invest in, I think about it long and hard. And if I can't stop thinking about it 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, then I move forward and I make the purchase. But I have to make a commitment to myself ultimately where I say, I am going to 100% commit to using whatever product it is or commit to whatever time frame it is. Like I have invested in a really incredible artificial intelligence program, and I bought this and it was expensive, but I knew it was going to be revolutionary for my business, for my team, for growth. And I needed to know how to use this properly. And so I invested big, but I prayed on it, I thought about it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I did it. And guess what? I committed to it. And so I learn, I implement, and I use it every single day, but I committed to it. So had I done an impulse buy, right, there's a good chance that maybe I bought it and didn't commit and I just wasted a bunch of money. So that impulse control, the ability to implement delayed gratification, these things are so necessary to push into our lives if we want to be successful with finances as well as health. They're 100% correlated. And that's what's really scary, guys, is that your finances and your health are 100% correlated. Like, who in the world would have ever thought, I would have never thought in a million years that credit would be maximizing people's livelihoods. And I have to tell you a really unbelievable story that I recently shared at a keynote that I just recently did. And one of our team members, he had written an email to the entire team, and he said, "This is why I love what I do so much." And he was telling a story about a man who had entered our program and is doing very well. And he said to our team member, he said, "If I hadn't met you guys," he's like, "I don't think I would be alive today." And he said, "I lost everything. I lost my $4.5 million construction business. My wife died, and I had nothing left." And he said, "Because of you guys, I'm here. I'm alive." And now we obviously certainly cannot take credit for him being alive. He had to reach his hand out and ask for help. And we had to be there on the other end to grab it and say, it's going to be okay. But this is why we take so much time with our clients. And this is why we qualify them to make sure that they're a good fit for our program. We want to make sure that, they're going to see success while they're with us based off of our years of history in this business. And someone ultimately telling me that I don't know if I would be here if it wasn't for you guys. We underestimate our finances, and we don't put enough time and attention into developing the characteristics in order to be successful with our finances. And it really is this simple stuff, these basic things. And one thing I said yesterday that I want to say on this podcast today is that if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. I do what is hard, so my life has become easier. My husband and I, we have real wealth. If something were to happen tomorrow, the whole world was shut down tomorrow, we would be okay. And most people can't say that. And it's because we live a life where we always pay ourselves first. And what I mean by that is when we get a paycheck, it's automated. And this is something really cool. And I take a big chunk from the initial part of my paycheck and I invest it. I don't even see it. It's like it doesn't exist. And that's what my husband has set up too. So in the state police, they have what's called deferred comp. It just gets taken out of his check. He never even sees it. It never hits his bank account. And so when you have it set up like that, where the saving is automated, that's when all of a sudden you really start to see people building lives where they're financially free. And so yesterday, between the Fox business interview I did and the interview that I listened to with Mr. Bach, it was unbelievable. And what people don't realize is that $27.40 a day accumulated over 40 years, if you invest it, and this is how compounding works, compounding interest, it actually adds up to roughly a little bit over $4 million over 40 years. So if you're in your 20s, if you're in your 30s, think about this. If you start investing $27.40 a day in your 20s, by the time you're in your 60s, you're going to have over $4.5 million in your bank account, potentially. Again, based off of the rate of return. There's no guarantees. You can't make any guarantees when it comes to that stuff, but just based off of the last 40 years of history as far as how stocks and dividends have worked, that's the numbers that were given by Mr. Bach yesterday. And so it's really amazing, right? We're thinking to ourselves like, oh, a little purchase here, a little purchase there, it's not a big deal. And there's some people who are saying like, oh, who cares about the latte? Who cares about it's not going to make you wealthy or rich? Well, I'm going to push back on that because skipping the latte is not going to make you wealthy. It's the habit of delaying gratification and taking what you would have spent on the latte and investing it instead. That's what's going to make you wealthy. Ed Milet talked about what he started with. He was making minimum wage and he would take $20 a month and he would invest it into a mutual fund. Back then, when he was doing that, there was a lot of friction as far as being able to invest. And now the amount of resources we have to be able to invest money in small increments, it's limitless. So it's not that we lack resources, we lack resourcefulness, and we are just refusing to do it. We're just refusing to say, okay, I decide to choose my future. We're just living in the here and now. And the statistics are staggering. Right now, the amount of millionaires in the country, it's huge. And that number is going to double. We have an opportunity now to build more wealth than ever. People are making more money than ever, yet the disparity is growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're in more debt than we ever have been before. So the big thing that people need to start implementing is it starts with character. It starts with the habits. So if you can stave off getting the latte for, let's say, the next year, maybe don't make the small little Amazon purchase, look and review your subscriptions. If you can do all of that, you'd be surprised what you'd be left with. So a great question that they had for me is they said, before touching a single document or disputing a charge, they said, what mental or emotional shift needs to happen? The mental shift that will need to happen is people need to remove the block in their mind of, I'm only going to give this so much time. We have to think about credit and finances. We have to think about it like brushing our teeth, like working out, like eating. It's something that has to be done daily, weekly, monthly. You can't just stop doing it, right? If you stop taking a shower, you're going to stink. If you stop taking care of your finances, they're going to stink. It's literally just like that. And so we have to commit to the long-term process of building and then also fixing, right? If you had gotten into a car accident and they said, okay, it's going to take you a year to learn how to walk again, right? Well, you're not going to just be like, well, I'm only giving you 3 months. No, you'd be like, all right, well, I want to walk again. So I'm going to take the year necessary to rehab so I can walk again and then I can run again. It's the same thing with credit. We're literally stopping and selling ourselves short. We're saying, no, I'm fine with crawling. I'm good. I'm just going to crawl for the rest of my life. I don't need to walk and I certainly don't need to run. Why would we do that to ourselves? And I think it's because oftentimes when we don't understand it, because we're not sitting there doing the math, just avoiding it doesn't help anything. But when your bank account is dry and you have no savings and you're wondering where all of your money is going, the first place to start looking is your credit, because everything costs you more. Your mortgages, your car insurance, your car loans, your deposits on utilities. If you have to go get student loans, personal loans, if you run a business, forget about it. If you run a business and you don't have great personal credit, you don't even want to know how much you're overpaying. It's outlandish. So you business owners out there that are listening, I want to hear from you tomorrow, because that is something you have to fix, the personal credit, if you want to run a business and you want to run it successfully. So let's go to the next question that they had asked, because I think is really, really good. They wanted to transition into the quick credit repair, because we've had clients that were in the 400s and they ended up going into the 700s, and they wanted to walk through what that plan looked like. So here's what I'm going to do for all of you. I'm going to give you one, for instance, and I put this a lot on my Instagram. I'll put posts and shares for you to boost your credit scores pretty quickly. So here's what you can do. So you want to look at your credit report. We use a company called getfitcredit.com. So we look at the credit report, or you can go to annualreport.com is what it is. So that's a free one from the bureaus. It's very lengthy. It's very tedious. That's only for advanced users. But what you want to do is pull up the credit report and you want to look at everything. Now, you want to see if you have credit cards. If you don't have any credit cards, that's step number one. So if you don't have any credit cards, I would highly recommend, so you can get a secured credit card. OpenSkyCC.com is phenomenal. And the reason we love them so much is because it's guaranteed approval. They don't run a credit check. There are a lot of other great companies that do the secured cards as well. So at least bare minimum, open up the credit card. Now, if you have any collections on the credit report that are owned by third-party collection agencies, here are the top ones to look for. LVNV Funding, which is also known as Resurgent Capital, Jefferson Capital Systems. You have Midland Credit Management. They will usually delete it if they've held it for about 2 years or more. And then Portfolio Recovery. Those are the most common ones. There are other ones that will do a pay to delete, but look for those. And if you have those on your credit report, you can call them up, you can settle, and then you can do what's called a pay to delete. It comes off the report, the score goes up. Additionally, you want to look to see if you have medical. There are 35 states that still report medical collections. If you have medical, the rules are that the bureaus will delete them once they've been paid. So you can pay to delete those as well, and you can also settle those. Additionally, if you do have credit cards, you want to make sure that you're managing them properly. So 6% utilization on each individual credit card, and you want to make sure that you get the balance down to 6% utilization or less by the closing date and or the statement balance as of. So it's called the reporting date, but if you call your credit card company, you're going to have to say, I need to know when my closing date is, and they'll be able to tell you. And that's the day that they report to the credit bureaus. So get it down the day before, let it report, and then the next day that you can spend again. So getting it down to 6% utilization or less is imperative. The podcast that I did today with one of our team members, she, along with all of our clients, are always shocked to see how many points are being held by their credit card usage. It's up to 200 points. And people don't understand that it's that much until they make the payments and the score jumps through the roof. So make sure to get your balances down, because that's going to be the fastest thing to move. If you have any of those types of items on the credit report, you can pay them, get them deleted. Additionally, if you have brand new credit card charge-offs, we always recommend to our clients to settle those as well, because they're still calculating the balanced limit ratio against you. So if you don't even want to stress about doing this by yourself, we will help you with this. But if you're savvy, you know how to read a credit report, this is something that you can do quickly on your own, and you will see a nice score increase. We've had clients go from 400 to 700, literally just applying these types of tips. And then the last one is authorized user. Now, authorized user still works. Be aware that the mortgage industry is changing. So the newer algorithms are going to not take authorized user the way that the older ones are, but the older ones are still being used and implemented every single day. So with authorized user, so get added to the oldest credit card that you possibly can. The key is age. It's always going to be age. So mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, just make sure that whatever you're being added to, make sure that the history is clear. So just make sure that the history is clear, no missed payments, and make sure whoever you're piggybacking off of, that's another name for it, authorized user, make sure that they always pay their bills on time. Because if they do miss a payment and you've been added, then you're also going to watch your credit scores go down as well. So with that being said, the last question that they had asked is, what common hacks or mistakes do you see people make that end up accidentally backfiring and hurting their credit profile instead? So this one's crazy, because obviously I'm sure you have seen enough TikToks and Instagram reels, right, that people make where they're like, okay, well, don't touch collections, don't touch this, don't touch that. Sometimes you do want to touch collections. Sometimes you do want to touch charge-offs, and we're going to help you with which ones that they are. So it's not like don't ever touch them, but generally speaking, if you pay a collection, right, you reactivate it, you restart the clock, the score will go backwards. Here's the one that always surprises people. So people will have all of this money that they're ready just to dump on their credit score, and they're like, all right, I'm just going to pay everything off, and that's going to do it. And we're like, stop. Because here's the thing. So we've had clients where they're like, I'm going to pay off my car loan, I'm going to pay off my student loan, I'm going to pay off my mortgage. We're like, don't do it. The score will actually go backwards if you pay off your car loan, your mortgage, your student loan. And the reason why is, so when you pay off an installment loan versus revolving, so revolving is store cards, credit cards, lines of credit, right? So when you have credit cards and you pay them off, they stay open, versus installment loans, when you pay them off, they get closed. And so they stay on the report as positive history. Underwriters can see it, but it stops calculating into the score. And so ultimately you'll see the score go backwards. So it looks good. However, it's not doing you any favors anymore. So don't rush to pay off a car loan or a student loan or anything like that to boost the credit score. Pay it off, of course. That's always ideal. But if you're trying to rush to boost your credit score, that's not the way to do it. So the last thing that we had talked about yesterday on Fox is they had asked, how do you coach people to transition from short-term emergency fixes into lifelong financial and personal wellness? So one thing we have in our firm that's really unique is we actually implement 30-day follow-ups with every single client. And the reason why is, my best friend always says, you have to be reminded more than you're taught. And that's a fact. And so we have the understanding that people are in our program, not because they understand credit so well, but because they don't understand credit so well. And so we know that we have to hold their hand and we've got to remind them more than we teach them. And so we overload our clients with information, and between Credit Tip Tuesday, and actually we have Credit Tip Wednesday, Thursday, Friday too. So it's actually not even Tuesday anymore, but we just completely overwhelm them with so much literature, so much information, so much knowledge, so much personalization. And remember, you only retain 10% of what you hear. So it's important that we follow up with them every 30 days. Okay, this is the action plan. This is what you have to do. Make sure you do X, Y, Z. Get your balances down to this by this date. And so that's the key so we're trying to implement new habits to get to a place where they're self-sustained, so that way they understand that this is a long-term ordeal. And so that's one thing that we've done in our program is we teach people it's not just a quick fix. This is not a Band-Aid. We're literally resetting the bone, and we're setting you back up to go out and run your marathon, to go run your race of life. Because this is something that is not short-term. This is long-term. Credit is something that is going to follow you for the rest of your life. And you have to understand that credit is an investment. It's an investment in you. It's an investment in your future. And it's actually proven. So I'd say 99% of our clients are home buyers, and our niche is in the mortgage industry. And I want to share with you an interesting statistic that was shared from yesterday. The average homeowner has 38 times more wealth than the average renter. So it needs to be a goal of everyone to be able to purchase a home, but do it with optimal credit scores, so that way you get the best rate, and that way you're not putting a bunch of money toward interest or mortgage insurance. In fact, I want to tell you something really cool. So we literally have one or two at minimum loans close a day with our partners. So we don't close loans. We obviously send our clients back to their lenders. And our lender was talking with us this morning, and he's like, guys, this is freaking awesome. My buyer now went from FHA to conventional. So when you go from FHA to conventional, you no longer have to carry what's called private mortgage insurance. Private mortgage insurance can be wildly expensive. It can be quite a few $100s a month. And until you reach a point where you have at least 20% equity in your home, you're going to be making that payment. So not only were we able to get her into a new loan with a better rate, better terms, but she now qualified for a special grant, which was almost $18,000. Guys, she spent a few $100s and got $18,000 given to her as a grant because she fixed her credit score. If that's not a reason to fix your credit, I don't know what is. So I hope this was a valuable educational session for you. We are so excited to help people build and amass wealth. And I want everyone to be in the situation that I'm in now, which is I've learned all the principles. I've learned delayed gratification. I've learned about investing. I've learned about paying myself first. I've automated everything. Everything I have is on auto pay. My investing is on auto. Everything is automatic, so I don't have to think about it. And I want you to be in that same situation too. And it has to start at the very bottom. You've got to start with the credit piece, right? Remember, you've got to be able to crawl and then walk, then run. So we want to help you with that. And so if this podcast inspired you, if this podcast left you with questions, what I want you to obviously do is, number one, go to our website and connect with us. Ask to have a conversation with one of our team members so we can go through your personalized credit report with you and we can review it with you. And also drop your email below into the comments. That way we can actually add you to our mailing list. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little link in there where you guys can subscribe to our mailing list so you can be on all of our credit tips that we send out every single week. With that being said, guys, I'm so grateful for you being here. Thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, and share. That way we can get you more amazing guests to give you more amazing information. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Micah Smith. God bless. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe. And if there's someone you know that this would help, please share this with them. If you are looking to fix and repair your credit, you can find us at www.micaabigail.com. And if you're looking for more personal stories on myself, you can find me at Fit credit doctor. Thanks again for joining, and God bless.